It was my 6th birthday, and my party had just ended. We had cake, pizza, and played games. Typical birthday party. I lived with my mum and her boyfriend. His name was Steve. For my birthday, they got me one of those Fisher-Price playsets. The ones that were like 4 feet high and had a small slide, small enough to fit in my room. I was extremely excited about this because it was exactly what I wanted, and I was sure it was the greatest invention since sliced bread. The playset was set up right by my door, in front of my bed. Now, before I go on to the actual part of the story you want to hear, I need to give a little background about the house I lived in, from what I know at least. To begin with, the house was old, blue colonial house in upstate New York. The house was like every other house in the neighborhood, and since Steve had just got a promotion at work, there was constantly work being done on the house. Basically, a complete remodel while we lived there. The only thing I didn't like about the house was that you couldn't get into the attic, and for some reason, bats kept getting in there, and at 6 years old, you don't like bats. My mum tucked me into bed after my birthday around 9 p.m, a little later than usual. I remember waking up a few times that night because I was really excited to use the playset in the morning. I didn't get to play with it much that day because of the assembly. One of the times I woke up, I remember looking at the playset when I saw 2 shadows, a boy and a girl, and they looked like they were talking to each other. As a child, I didn't want to be scared, so I rationalized this as the shadows of the trees playing tricks in my mind. That's what my mom would have said. I managed to go back to sleep that night and didn't really think much of it the next day. My birthday is in June, so I usually didn't have class on my birthday. This meant that I could spend the day playing with my friends. I didn't think about the shadows I saw the night before at all. I basically forgot that it happened. Until the next night. My usual bedtime was 8 p.m, and my mum was pretty strict on this matter, so I showered, got in my pajamas, and was in bed by then. I was lying in bed when I had a strong feeling something was watching me. I looked to the wall between my door and the playset, and the shadows were there again. This time, I paid more attention to it while I was frozen in fear in my bed. The shadow children seemed to be talking, but I couldn't hear them. It also seemed as if they were looking at each other, but it's hard to sense 3D direction from a 2D shadow. I screamed for my mom, and she ran into my room and turned on my light. At this point, the shadows disappeared. My mom then let me sleep in her bed that night, which she never let me do. She assumed I had a nightmare. Every night from then on, when I would look at the wall at night, those shadows would be there. When this would happen, I would call for my mom, and the cycle repeated. During this time, Steve and my mom would argue a lot. I wasn't sure why, but I know I didn't notice it at first. The house had also gone into a full remodeling, where almost half the house would always have something being done to it. I wished for school. This was back when school was fun and all your friends would be there. I hated spending any time in the house, and I would try to go to my grandma's whenever possible. This cycle repeated for a while, and I'm not really sure what my mom thought about me telling her that ghost shadow people were in my room every night. I begged her to leave the hallway light on every night, hoping that the light would scare away the shadows. She obliged, but the light never did anything, and I would yell for her every night. This continued for a while, but then one night, something changed. Lying in bed, something felt different. I wasn't sure if I had built up a sort of tolerance to the shadow people that were in my room at night, in the same place, doing nothing but silently talking to one another, or if I was just dumb. That night, I decided that I didn't want to wake my mom up for some reason. I decided I would be brave enough to walk right past the shadows to my mom's room. I think it might be important to remember that whenever my mom would come by, these shadows would disappear. I still don't know why. I walked past the shadows and nothing happened. I was then in the hallway with the light right above me and my mom's room to the left. I remember looking up at the light and then back to my mom's room, then back to the light. I did this a few times and then I remember just staring into the light. I'm not sure why, but I was drawn to the light. This is where the story starts to get a little confusing, but I will try my best to explain to you what I can. This next part of the story will be what I can remember as of today. Then I will try to fill in some blanks with what my family remembers and could tell me. After looking at the light, for some reason, I decided that I didn't want to wake my mom up, which was weird because I never cared before. I went back to bed, and the next thing I remember is sitting in the living room watching TV. There was construction all around me, and plastic covers on the couches so that none of the drywall or new paint got on them. I remember I was sitting on the floor, and I was just watching static on the TV. To me, this memory seems like an out-of-body experience. I feel like I was there, but I didn't feel in control. These memories are like a flash to me. I have them, but nothing in between. I only have one more memory being in that house. I was in my room, looking out of my window down to the driveway. It was night time, and my mom had asked a friend's mother to come over. Her name was Danielle, but everyone called her Dee. I remember watching her pull up into the driveway and giving my mom a hug. I could hear them for some reason, and this also seemed like an out-of-body experience. I heard Dee say that there was a boy and girl spirit in the house, but they weren't the problem. The problem was that there was a dark and evil entity in the house, and that it wanted me. Dee and my mom then proceeded to burn sage in the house. I assumed I went to bed, but when I woke up, I was at my grandma's house, and it was 2 months after the light incident. I felt fine when I woke up, and I didn't think I even noticed anything different. I often spent the night at my grandma's house. I had my own assumptions about what had happened, but I never really talked to my mom about it until I was 16. When I woke up at my grandma's, my mum had told me that we were moving out of Steve's house, that they were breaking up, and that I wouldn't be going back. My mum would get my stuff. As I stated earlier, I talked to my mum about this in detail when I was 16. The memories had bothered me for so long and I wanted answers. I told my mum exactly what I thought happened. My mum gave me a confused look when I told her about the part with Dee. She told me I wasn't in the house. My mum proceeded to tell me how I became more and more distant as we lived in that house. Then one day, we were eating dinner and I had just passed out, head in plate, like out of a movie. My mum said I had a high fever and looked ill. My mum is the kind of person who believes in the supernatural, and I think when I passed out, she decided to accept that the ghost stories I was telling her weren't in my head. This is when she decided to call Dee, who was known around town as being psychic. Dee told my mum to immediately get me out of the house and that she would come over. My mum drove me to my grandmother's and went back to the house when Dee showed up. I wasn't in the house, but I was able to recall what Dee had done and said without my mother telling me. My mother told me that she didn't tell Dee anything about what I had said, just that I said something was here, Since I was sick, my grandma kept a close watch on me that night. My grandma doesn't really believe in ghosts, but when I talked to her about it, she said it was a weird night. She said I was making weird noises, having trouble sleeping, and having a high fever, but then it just stopped. Like one moment, all of my symptoms went away. I went to bed, and that's when I remember waking up. As I sit here telling this story, I'm a 21-year-old senior in college. Every so often, I think back to these events, and I'm just confused. I have no answers. I try to come up with my own conclusions, but I can never think of a rational one. I have a hypothesis for what happened, but I won't share that with you now. I want you to come up with your own conclusion. Maybe someone else has gone through the same type of situation. That was the point of me telling you this. I am hoping that someday, someone will listen to this and be able to help me. It would be easy to say I was possessed or something, but that seems too unreal. If the memories I have weren't so vivid, it would be hard for me to believe this story. Hell, it's hard to believe with the memories, but if the memories I have weren't so vivid, it would be hard for me to believe this story. Hell, it's hard to believe with the memories. But I assure you that this happened.